Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. Is Aiza my soulmate? You hear that a lot in the Philippines, and that's what I want to cover today. Subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea, where I want to share with you what I am discovering that helps us have a good marriage, because I want other men to consider finding their wife or soulmate. Get notifications for upcoming videos by tapping the bell, and I would enjoy hearing your comments about this topic. I am happy that young men view this channel because they owe it to themselves to do what they can to find a good wife. I think it is especially important for Filipinas to hear this because I think they are often quick to declare a Westerner their soulmate. I'm going to put forward different ideas about a soulmate, so I hope you'll indulge me on this topic. Perhaps you've never come out and said you believed in a soulmate, but maybe you are pursuing a mate like you do. I'm going to give you something to think about. You don't hear much about this topic, so that's why I'm making this video. And before I do, just please check out the Love Beyond the Sea .wordpress.com site, where you can get Aiza's site right there too. Articles from me, Mr. E. You can get the Facebook and Twitter site all right there. Mr. E did a bang-up job on that, and I'm really proud of the work that he did. Now, initially, I wasn't expecting this topic to be too difficult to write about, but after doing some research, I became more interested in it, as it seems the idea could be more harm than good. I will be expressing my thoughts and quoting from 3 sources that I am linking in the description box. What do you think of when you hear of the term soulmate? From Keen.com, there are certain familiar paradigms on the landscape of modern love that can trace their origins back to the earliest days of recorded history. The phenomena of love at first sight and having a soulmate are the stuff of ancient legend. In Greek mythology, each person was purportedly half of one larger being, separated at birth by destiny. Life's quest was to find one's other half and recombine in order to become a whole entity. While the Greeks may have painted a poetic picture of true love, does it really apply to people now? The probability of anyone believing that each of us is literally one half of a single larger human being is slim. However, many of us do like to think that we are part of a perfect pair that meshes on every level: spiritual, physical, and emotional. Today, whether one believes or not in the concept of having a soulmate depends on one's definition of the term. So just what is a soulmate? Is it someone to whom you are immediately drawn? Is it someone you feel that you absolutely cannot live without? Or is it someone you can communicate with freely, with whom you feel a deep level of comfort, connection, and trust, and then nearly every moment you spend with this person offers happiness and contentment? From marriage.com, over 88% of young adults believe they have a soulmate somewhere waiting for them, according to a study by the National Marriage Project at Rutgers University. Clearly, the idea of a soulmate is a pervasive one, but is it real? Where did the term even come from? Is it dangerous to put so much faith in a notion that is nearly impossible to prove? For many, the idea of a soulmate is rooted in fate, in God's will, or reincarnation of a former love. Others have no clear understanding of exactly why they believe in the idea of a soulmate, but still feel strongly that they are destined to be with one specific person in this world. My thoughts: if you are married to a Filipina, she probably refers to you as her soulmate. A common idea of a soulmate is that for every person, there is another one who is a perfect fit. And if you marry anyone other than this soulmate, you will never be happy. This little statement shows several dangers. Your soulmate is not going to be wonderful at all times. At some point, marriage is going to punch you in the face, and you'll realize that it isn't going to be one big road trip. We all go into marriage with the best intentions, but most of us realize we will both need to be dealing with our differences, learning to be unselfish and to be forgiving. Situations come up that we didn't expect, and sometimes they are difficult to resolve harmoniously. Your soulmate is going to tax your patience at times and be difficult to live with at times. Also, it can be used as an excuse for divorce. A second problem is that when someone experiences unforeseen conflict with their soulmate, they might second guess their decision to marry them and look for greener pastures. I mean, come on, if it isn't going the way we hoped it would, then maybe we married the wrong person and missed our true soulmate. This could result in getting a divorce and another search for Mr. or Mrs. Soulmate. It certainly could result in a lack of effort to work through conflicts together, because someone could figure there is no point to do that. They need to find their soulmate. Also, you'll never be happy if you marry someone else other than your soulmate. I see a couple of issues with this. One is it could cause someone who is single to become paralyzed in analyzing the possibility someone is their soulmate. How are they to tell exactly? What are the giveaway signs? Can they trust the person they're thinking might be their very soulmate? Another problem with this is thinking that if your spouse died, that you are stuck being single the rest of your life. The same idea if victimized by divorce. Obviously, it's easier to convince yourself after a divorce from your soulmate that they weren't really your soulmate. But when death is involved, the soulmate concept might stymie another attempt at love. Now also consider, what if the soulmate dies after only a few years? If something should happen to my amazing Aiza, I would not be interested in anyone else. Not because I believe in the exclusivity of a soulmate concept, but because I don't think I could do it. I most certainly hope to never have to find out. When Aiza isn't around, I feel differently. A couple of times she had returned to the Philippines for important matters, and I was without her for a total of about 5 weeks. I dreaded all the days. I tried to focus on the usual stuff, but without this woman to be around, it was very uncomfortable. But what happens when someone who believes in a soulmate is met with an untimely death? That is enough of a burden to bear, but weigh it down with the thought that the only person in the entire universe you were meant to marry just died, and you might be still in your 20s. That could be overwhelming. Additionally, the soulmate concept limits your capacity to find a spouse. Again, from keen.com, I'll have all these listed. There are several inherent dangers in putting too much credence in the soulmate concept, because the idea that there is one and only one right person out there for us is fraught with romantic landmines and unrealistic aspirations. By thinking that there's only one perfect pairing for you, you've already limited yourself from being open to potential partners who might actually make a great love match if given the opportunity to grow into a relationship. To dismiss this potential pool of lovers out of hand is to do oneself a great disservice. Those who adhere to a long laundry list of must-haves for a mate are setting themselves up for failure, and in so doing, they are also abdicating responsibility for their inability to find Mr. or Mrs. Right by refusing to view their own romantic shortcomings through the lens of reality. Rather than recognizing and owning up to the folly of a set of rigid standards that can never be attained, they simply blame the world for its inequities. The rationalization is, there's no one out there for me, when the reality is that there may be plenty of people out there, just not any so-called perfect ones. What such people do not grasp is that perfection is, for the most part, an illusion. Even in the best relationships, there are going to be arguments, misunderstandings, the occasional contention. By being unwilling to accept anything other than an ideal partner, it releases them from the responsibility of finding a partner at all, and they get to play victim. On the other hand, proactive people who are looking for love understand that flaws and foibles are to be expected, and unless the issues turn out to be major, they don't have to be deal breakers. Does our soulmate complete us? These are my thoughts. The Keen.com article brought up the issue of the soulmate idea causing reliance on the other spouse to make us complete. I wanted to interject here that I have a video called "Are You Incomplete?" without a wife. I do believe that most people are incomplete without a spouse, and I will explain that in that video. Basically, I believe God created virtually all people with a need for a spouse. I also have another video called Is There Only One Filipina That Can Be the One? Biblical reference Mark 10:7 through 9 declares, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one. Therefore, what God has joined together, let not man separate. Now, this is me again. Here's a very interesting take on the idea of soulmate, a different perspective. And this is from gotquestions.org. If you are married, kind of a hard line stance here. If you are married, the person you are married to is your soulmate. A husband and wife are united, one flesh, no longer two, but one, and joined together, i.e., soulmates. A marriage may not be as unified and joyous as a couple wishes it to be. A husband and wife may not have the physical and emotional and spiritual unity that they desire. But even in this instance, the husband and wife are still soulmates. A couple in such a situation needs to work on developing true soulmate intimacy by obeying what the Bible teaches about marriage. And you can look at Ephesians 5:22 through 33. A couple can develop the intimacy, love, and commitment that being one flesh soulmates entails. If you are married to your soulmate. No matter how disharmonious a marriage is, God can bring healing, forgiveness, restoration, and true marital love and harmony. So what if you're wrong about your soulmate? While the gotquestions.org article is very dogmatic, this next source says soulmates may very well exist. This is from marriage.com. When times are good, it is easy to believe that the person you are with could be your soulmate. But when things get harder, this same confidence can just as easily be shaken. What if you were wrong? What if this person was really never your soulmate? Surely your true soulmate would never disappoint you, never misunderstand you, never hurt you. Maybe your real soulmate is still out there somewhere waiting for you. While the concept of a soulmate can never be definitively proved, neither can it be disproved. So, what harms can come from believing in soulmates, or at least hope for one? The problem can be that our concept of soulmates can cause us to have unrealistic expectations for love and prompt us to leave relationships that actually have a great future. Say you found someone special, a possible soulmate candidate. Unfortunately, rarely do the heavens open up and bestow a clear sign that the person you are with is in fact the one. Without such proof, it is easy to justify a little soulmate shopping the minute your romance starts to lose a little excitement. A 20-year study by Paul Amato, PhD at Penn State, suggests that 55 to 60% of divorcing couples discarded unions with real potential. Many of these individuals maintained that they still loved their partner, but were bored or felt the relationship hadn't lived up to their expectations. Viable relationships are often tossed out not because of irreversible problems, but because our partner didn't quite measure up to the romantic ideals that we had in our head. Particularly in long-term committed relationships or marriage, ending a solid relationship merely because you are no longer 100% convinced your partner is your soulmate seems irresponsible. That is not to say we should stay in unhealthy relationships, but rather that we should weigh the merits of a relationship objectively. Since defining exactly what qualifies a person to be your soulmate is so elusive, try assessing your relationship instead on fundamentals like love, respect, and compatibility. Undoubtedly, some matches are a better fit than others, but being a good fit doesn't mean that you need to share every personality trait or interest as your partner. They go on to say soulmates may very well exist. Perhaps you are fortunate enough to have found yours already. Ultimately, what matters, though, is not our partner's ability to pass some mysterious soulmate test. What matters most is that we have confidence in our ability to continue finding beauty, strength, and yes, true love in our relationship with the person we're with. from Keen.com. There's an old adage that says the sum is greater than the whole of its parts. When you're fortunate enough to make a connection based on an equal, healthy partnership that favors mutual input, nothing could be more true. What each person brings to the relationship not only enhances the well-being of the other, but it is the fuel that helps love thrive and last. Personally, I don't use the term soulmate, but if I did, I would mean to convey that my Filipina wife was an answer to long, earnest prayer, and that as far as I know, will be the only woman I will be married to. I also intend to put everything I have into this relationship because I am thankful to God and thankful to her. I definitely consider our union as the sum is greater than the whole of its parts. Now, this is kind of difficult to say, but if I was to use the term soulmate, it would be to make the point that I'm going to invest everything I can into this marriage to my little woman from the Philippines that I prayed for many years. Not only that, but I asked my church to pray for me to find a wife, and at that time a Filipina was the furthest thing on my mind. So does an answer to prayer equal a soulmate? There could have been women all the time I was alone, yet Aiza was the one who I easily married in less than 8 weeks. How did that happen? You know, it seemed so seamless. And I just can't imagine, being married to anybody else. Does that mean she's my soulmate? I also agree that since we are now in a strong bond marital union that God expects to keep intact, that it seems close to a soulmate. I can't see being married to anyone else. If she were to die, and I don't think she would remarry either. At least that's what she said. As I said before, often when Filipinas say they believe in a soulmate, they're serious. They don't believe in the chance at marrying somebody else, especially if it was a good marriage, because they think that's it. That's the only one that you were meant to be. So I'm trying to challenge that a little bit today. To round this out, here are a few thoughts from gotquestions.org from their biblical perspective, and I try to have a biblical worldview. From gotquestions.org, is it possible to marry the wrong person? If we give ourselves to God and seek His guidance, He promises to direct us. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him and He will make your paths straight. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. The implications of that is that if you're not trusting in the Lord with all your heart and are leaning on your own understanding, you can go the wrong direction. Yes, it is possible in a time of disobedience and lack of close fellowship with God to marry someone whom He did not desire you to marry. They go on to say, even in such an instance, though God is sovereign and in control, even if a marriage was not God's desire, it is still within His sovereign will and plan. God hates divorce, Malachi 2:16, and marrying the wrong person is never presented in the Bible as grounds for divorce. The claim, I married the wrong person and I will never be happy unless I find my true soulmate, is unbiblical in two respects. First, it is a claim that your wrong decision has overridden God's will and destroyed His plan. Second, it is a claim that God is not capable of making a struggling marriage happy, unified, and successful. Nothing we do can disrupt God's sovereign will. God can take any two people, no matter how mismatched, and mold them into two people who are perfect for each other. If we maintain close fellowship with God, He will lead us and guide us. If a person is walking with the Lord and truly seeking His will, God will lead that person to the spouse He intends. God will lead us to our soulmate if we submit to Him and follow Him. However, being soulmates is both a position and a practice. A husband and wife are soulmates, they say, in that they are one flesh, spiritually, physically, and emotionally united to each other. In practice, though, there is a process of taking what a couple is, soulmates, and making that a day-by-day reality. True soulmate oneness is only possible by implementing the biblical pattern of marriage. So I would like to think there's going to be a lot of comments on this, and so please let me know if this has challenged you, if you think I'm nuts, or some of these aren't my ideas, but you hear soulmate a lot, especially in the Philippines. I don't want to have anybody make it harder for themselves to find a wife, because I do think that the idea of a soulmate ultimately can be limiting to what they're after. Call it what you will, but I am very satisfied and happy with my love beyond the sea.